Welcome back to another episode of Second Act with Deangelo, the space where grown folks come to breathe, reset, and step boldly into the next chapter of their lives. This show's all about transformation, the kind that doesn't happen overnight, but through intention, healing, and purpose. Every week, we sit down with a leader who are not just talking about change, but living it. Family, today we're joined by someone who has found his purpose at a very early age. His name is Johnny Allen, the executive director of JK Movement. JK Movement is transforming young men through mentorship, discipline, emotional development, and leadership training. But behind that mission is a man who had to grow, evolve, and step into his own second act long before most people even recognize they're in one. Johnny is not just leading in an organization, he's shaping futures. And today, we get to hear the story behind that mission. How you doing, brother?
Evening, Deangelo, and thank you for inviting me to be part of Second Act podcast.
I'm honored to have you and, personally proud of your journey. And I'm excited to have this conversation. I'm going to get right into it. I know you're in Minnesota. How is Minnesota treating you right now?
Minnesota's treating me all right. I've been here all my life, but as I've gotten older, I'm like my tolerance and my anxiety is flaring up on me, and it's like, man, we're talking about pivoting, and I'm like, man, I'm ready to pivot and get out of here. But overall, I have no complaints.
Have you ever, I never known this about you, but have you ever lived outside of Minnesota before?
I've been blessed enough to be able to visit grandparents from Alabama and Mississippi pretty much all my summer years growing up. So I'll stay down there for a month or two. I did have an opportunity to live down in Alabama, but I chose not to. And who knows how life could have been if I would have stayed down there for it was junior high at the time. If I would have stayed down there for schooling, but I'm glad I'm glad I'm up here.
Before we get into your organization, JK Movement, we definitely want everyone in this audience to hear about this great program that you've created. I want to really get to know before the purpose of your journey, how you even got to develop this program for young kids and the movement that I guess inspired it. From my understanding, I heard at a very young age you started this organization and you've made what I call a lot of changes and pivots in your early age that a lot of people in their late age, like myself, 50, 40, might take total changes in their life professionally, right? You did this at a very young age. From my understanding, you were looking to be in the NFL. Can you kind of explain to me how you made this shift and made this dedication to this program you've created?
This is our 15th year in existence. It'll be 16 after this school year. I'm very blessed to have two parents who instilled in me at a young age about aspirations and dreams and going for what you know and living on purpose. So, growing up, I've always saw my parents giving. They were a giving family. So, seeing my mom and dad give and not look for anything in return. And examples of that is like probably having family folks staying at the house from time to time. When friends would come to the crib, it's like their own child. So they would be like, go ahead and come and eat. Those type of actions that I witnessed and saw for myself on how my parents were to other people, that energy was instilled in me growing up as well. So I always was a giver and not a taker, and always try to do things for the kindness of my heart and not to look for anything in return. So at that young age, that's where my way of thinking and the way I do things came about. And so, as you mentioned, I did have aspirations and dreams to play in the NFL, but you know, as I got older and as the body started wearing down on me, and then what ultimately made that decision for me to pivot was my injury in college. I had to
Mm.
start thinking about what was going to be plan B for me. And of course, I was always trying to figure it out anyways as a student athlete, but I really didn't know exactly where my journey was going to take me. So I just started to figure out sports leadership and trying to add that add those two equations up to see what will work for me. And so I was fortunate enough to do a little what is it called, a visit presentation per se. We had, when I was in college, we had a group of young folks come from a school over in the Minneapolis North area, and I was chosen by my coach to speak with them. And this was like my freshman or sophomore year in college, so I was like, all right, but I never did it before. And sure enough, was talking with them and giving them the pros and cons, the plus and minuses of being a student athlete, and especially being a student athlete in a predominantly white college. You know, kids coming from the north side, they were like, "Oh, okay, that's what's up." And
Mm.
afterwards, they sent me thank you cards and appreciation letters and notes about taking the time to speak with them and really being genuine with them and not fluffing and being fake or anything of that magnitude. And that kind of clicked in my head. Okay, this is something that I might be able to take to another level, being that I had to, figure out the blueprint and learn how to maneuver in the nonprofit world and also running a business of that focus. I started working in different jobs, but they were related to working with youth and also interacting with youth, from the honor students to the young folks that were on paper. I had numerous jobs that led me to start up the JK movement, and that's where we at today.
One thing that I think is a really struggle for people, and I think especially people in their older age when they've been in a career for so long and then all of a sudden, that career's dying out, for example, or, the company lays them off and they got to reinvent themselves, right? It sounds like you had a moment where you're pursuing this dream to be in the NFL at a very young age. You're doing all the athletic stuff you need to do. You're in school, got the coach, all that. All of a sudden, you said injury. Can you explain what it was for you? What emotional process did you go through prior to that? When you just said, okay, NFL, it's not happening. What was Johnny Allen going through mentally? And how did you pivot emotionally to say, hey, I'm going to go this direction? What was that experience?
For me, it was the realistic mindset, knowing how the NFL kind of operates, especially coming from a small college. I had the talent, and in college, I was, building that momentum up to, show that I can at least go to a camp or something. So my mindset was on that. Like, let's go for it. Let's train. Let's continue to work on the craft. Let's study, the game a little bit more, and go at it 110%. That was always the mindset that I had. And then when I blew my knee out, because that's what happened, I blew my knee out playing, out of all sports, intramural basketball. And then that moment when I was at the hospital and they, it was an emergency surgery, that moment was like, that dream is shattered, because
Mhm.
the statistics, the data that showed what the chances were for me to at least go to a camp, coming from a Division 3 at the time school, and coming off an injury as what I had. I dislocated my kneecap and tore my patella tendon. So yeah, I was still young, but the chances were very low for me to even get an invitation to the professional level. So I knew, as when I was laying in the hospital bed, I knew right then and there, like, that dream is gonna be over. I could probably still play, which I did. I played semi pro, just for the fun of it, still try to, show that I still had it a little bit. But I knew right then and there, those chances of, or dreams of mine going to the NFL were done.
As a young black man at that point, right? Um, I'm curious to find out, how did you deal with that emotionally? Did you deal with it by yourself internally? Because statistically, especially black men, we tend to deal with things inwardly,
Yeah.
right? And we don't, the whole bravado of masculinity and things like that. Did you have anybody that you was able to lean on and share, man, how it was affecting you to have to come to that realization? Parents, whoever,
Yeah.
boys, whatever.
My support system was pretty strong, and to this day, it's pretty strong with my parents. Loving me unconditionally, and then also certain family members. So, you know, I really didn't. I didn't cry on my girlfriend's shoulder per se. I didn't do
Hmm.
that because we were on the rocks anyway. So I wasn't as vulnerable with her about telling or talking about my emotions with her, but I definitely had that. I had that experience with my parents. My parents were there for me, thick and thin. They supported me, and talking to them about, man, well, it was hurtful. Believe me, I'm not gonna sit up
Hmm.
here and say it wasn't. At least for me, it was more about just giving the opportunity. One thing my dad taught me, which I still live by this code today, is at least try it once. So I live by that code, and I felt like I could at least try if I was given the opportunity to play football free, but that didn't happen. So emotionally, I was definitely hurt, and I was able to talk that out with my parents, and they definitely helped me just ease up and then just start looking at things a little differently as a student athlete who's gone through this injury. They helped me through the recovery stage, which helped a lot. And then from there, they just encouraged me to start figuring out what the next move is. And they supported me along that way. So I was fortunate enough to have two parents who still love me unconditionally that helped me through that emotional phase of my life when I got injured.
So that sounds like that's the moment where you really, at an early age, you had to have your second act right then and there. I mean, in terms of shifting, your mindset on this dream to creating something new for yourself and seeing yourself differently. So, and then it sounds like the pivot is becoming, before you came the leader, I think you kind of expressed some of the things of at the schools and participating in different programs where you're mentoring people and stuff like that. What kind of came to mind where you had this ideation that said, you know what, hey, there's something that is missing out here in the community that I can create because I've been here and I've done that. I've been in all these different roles where I've been mentoring through other programs, right? Whether it be school, stuff like that. What was the moment that said, I got an idea and I'm going to apply it?
Okay, so Brother Dan, when I graduated from college,
Mhm.
I was a big brother to a little brother. I was part of the Big Brother, Big Sister program. That's one of the ways that I started figuring it out. But it was when I graduated and started working in corporate that made me like look, I don't this is not for me. let me let me start utilizing what I've been doing from a volunteer perspective and just plunge into it and go on faith because working in corporate it wasn't my forte. So
Mhm.
that's where I kind of just decided to go at this full blown was when I started working after college in corporate, and I was in logistics. So, and it was a cool gig, but that just wasn't for me. So I was like, yo, this ain't cool. Let me start getting back into what I was doing and see where it takes me because I knew there was a need in society for working with our youth, particularly our black boys and black girls. And I knew just off my experience volunteering and then actually, like I mentioned, being a big brother, I
Mhm.
know that working with young folks, being genuine with them, being consistent in their lives through thick and thin, and holding them accountable. I was like, yo, this is probably the route that I need to go because they gravitated to me.
Right.
And I think a lot of that was because, again, from the family traits and family values that were instilled in me, and adding my own sauce to it, and showing the young folks that I'm invested in their lives, but this is what's going to happen, you know what I'm saying? And this is how we're going to get down. And I think showing them that and being consistent in that process with their journey, it helped a lot with my decision to go ahead and plunge.
So a big concept I see, or correct me if I'm wrong, foundation of your program is athletics, or fitness rather, right? Health fitness. Is that, be honest, is that more of a convenience to you? Hey, I like to work out anyway, so I might as well create a business that's centered around that so I can enjoy myself at the same time.
It was using our workout leadership program, and actually that's how we jump started JK movement, was on the athletic side of things. It was my way of interacting with young folks because at the time I had my own workout group of my brothers, and we would work out together. And that was a time, it was like the barbershop mentality. That was our
Mm.
time to be able to talk about our struggles or our situations, in the process of us getting it in the gym, and using that negative energy to help us do what we need to do on a positive manner of pushing that weight, you know what I'm saying, or pulling
Gotcha.
that weight. So
Yeah.
that mindset came about originally from our group workouts, but we incorporate that with our young folk because they're still young and they're still growing, and from a mental as well as physical and emotional, we're using all of those attributes to go into the gym and helping them understand the importance of working out, not just for looking good, but also from the mental and disciplined mindset. Because when you're
Hmm.
in that gym, you have to switch it into an attitude of, okay, I don't want this weight to defeat me, because the weights have no love. They don't discriminate to anyone. You either can push it,
Hmm.
pull it, or you can't. But with that
Hmm.
mindset, you go at it 110%. So we use that mindset to not only get it in, but also get an opportunity to converse with them on a more deeper level. So that's
Hmm.
how we started JK Movement, was starting in the gym, starting on the athletic side of things, because sports helped me discover who I am, and use some of those skill sets, leadership skill sets, or just ultimate soft and hard skills to create who I am today, from time management to taking initiative to how to work with people, how to work with self. Like some of
Hmm.
those attributes that we still do in our everyday lives, we incorporated that into the gym workout side of things from a workout leadership perspective, jump started.
Was there anything that you had to unlearn as you went through this journey to become the leader you are, with this program?
So originally I was in that mindset. It was, oh, I can help, I can save every kid. I had to pivot that real quick. That wasn't the case.
Hmm.
But I did, and I learned how to not think that way, but understand the journey of a lot of the young folks, and still giving them an opportunity to take advantage of the knowledge that I was able to give them, good or bad. So that's one thing I can say is I had to unlearn that quick. I had to learn that not everybody's ready to take advantage of the knowledge that you give them, and not everybody's the same. So you got
Hmm.
to be able to maneuver, pivot, adapt per child and per family and community wise.
What do you think has, because I would have to assume, you know, there's many people that try to start nonprofits, right? I think they're just as difficult, maybe sometimes even more difficult than someone creating a private, corporate, entity, right? And being profitable, right? The way you generate income, support from different organizations, stakeholders, all that stuff. So, what I want to know from you is, what was the toughest part about your journey once you set in your mind that I want to have my own nonprofit funded to be able to support the community through the means that I want to do that? What was like the some of the challenges for people out there who might want to hear, want to be inspired by creating something themselves through something they're passionate about?
We still go through this struggle today. I think
Mm,
what it is, brother D'Angelo, is showing your value, showing your worth. Because at least with my experience, we're a black owned, black ran minority nonprofit that started from the mud. So we already had the boots in the mud and we had to strap them up the best way we could, considering the barriers that we already have just off that. Because as a minority black owned nonprofit, we're part of that percentage of not getting the necessary funding to be sustainable or have the potential to grow like your counterpartners. So that's already a challenge by itself. But we had to really, you have to have that understanding, and it's true to the, we had to go double time. We had to show
okay.
our worth. You had to make sure you had data, because you can't just go out here and say that you're doing it. You had to show some data, and we still do that to this day, and we're getting better at it each day, each year. But we had to show our worth, had to show our data, and you had to be consistent, and you actually had to show videos and just doing, you had to show what you're capable of doing and the potential that you can do with what you say your business is about. So it's about
Mhm.
showing and telling it in a way that is worth the funders eyes and wanting to learn more about your organization.
What would you say is your, if you looking back, you said it's been about 16 years. You said about 16 years, right?
Yeah, 15 years, about to be 16 years in the game, but shoot, there's even some
Oh,
years that, starting the blueprint. Yeah. So it's
got you.
that, yeah.
So when you look back and, what are you most proud of, legacy wise, in terms of what you've created?
Um I'm very proud of the fact that we made impact with a lot of the young folks that have been through our program. I'm proud to say, just off the program alone, that we have 80% retainment. So a lot of our young folks that come into our program stay in our program until they graduate. And then even after that, they come back or volunteer or do what they need to do as a post secondary person. But retainment has been very solid with our organization. So I say that to say this: I've always been grateful seeing a young person grow to become the person that they are, and then having them come back and say thank you, or giving back of some form fashion, or coming to you and asking, can you write a letter of a recommendation, or can you vouch for me in regards of what my pursuit is going to be, or whatever it is, and or getting tickets to go to young folks graduations or whatever the case. Just seeing the end game
Hmm.
their first, that's what we're destined to do with the JK movement, is to empower and inspire effective change in the minds, bodies, and spirits of young people. And we do that from a way of healing center engagement. We do that from a holistic perspective. We do that from a strength based, mindset. But we want to see our babies grow and prosper and give them the necessary resources and love that they need outside of their home. So we've been able to do that, and seeing their stories and seeing their journey and seeing their growth, good or bad, but having them come back to us and say thank you, that's rewarding itself, and
Mm.
seeing them grow and prosper to become modern citizens out here in society.
So, in terms of your JK movement filling a gap in the community, is there a specific thing that you think you're addressing in the community that wasn't necessarily there?
We are filling the gaps of our young folks believing in themselves, filling the gap of them being able to dream and have aspirations about what they want to become, filling the gap of being kids and being in a safe environment, being a kid to understand the pros and cons of young life, and being able to have a voice to talk about their journey, filling the gap
Mm.
of providing resources that is needed for a lot of our babies to continue that mindset of believing in themselves. Those are some of the gaps that we help, filling the gaps of giving them the confidence to pursue their academia pursuits and giving them the resources necessary to tackle their challenges that affect them from missing school or doing things from a referral perspective. So we help with those gaps of helping our babies be babies and taking advantage of not only a trusted adult, but just the resources that we're able to provide them and doing things that they probably wouldn't do on a regular from an after school perspective. Giving them the opportunity to run a youth led program or a youth led entrepreneurship program, giving them the opportunity to understand business 101 and how to sell their brand or be their own brand and sell themselves to promote and conduct and generate revenue.
Is this ran like a after school program?
Traditionally, we are after school evening program, but we also do in school leadership program as well. So we have three
Mhm.
pillars. We have youth empowerment, we have career and workforce readiness, and we have civic and community outreach. And within those three pillars, we have numerous programs and services for our young folks. And we all do this from a healing center engagement approach. So we want to, like I said, we help our babies understand that they are not a product of their environment, but they are their dreams and aspirations of what they want to be.
So, in your next chapter of your leadership, what version of yourself is continue to grow? I mean, because you've been doing this, you've been matching your time and efforts in this purpose that you've had at such a young age. What does it look like in your next half? What is the evolution for yourself, if not, JK movement, but yourself?
You know, brother Deangelo, I'm still gonna be involved with some fashion or form of youth leadership. Doing some more speaking engagements, doing some more direct services within my I'm starting a LLC, so doing more direct services, doing some more things from an ownership perspective of providing what is needed for our babies and families is where I'm going to be at.
Mhm.
I'm going to always be involved with youth mentoring, youth development, but I want to do it in my own way of thinking and also from what I'm thinking as I get older, what flavor do I want to run it and how it adapts to the young folk
Mhm.
because they're calling me Unc now.
Mm.
So I want to have that. If that's the case, I want to be able to provide that Unc mentality, but be able to do it in a way that they understand it, and that they can vibe with it, So that's
Mhm.
what I'm doing in regards of me personally. It has been draining. There's been good, bad, ugly, very dark days, but I've been fortunate enough to again have unconditional parents and a strong support system to help me remind myself my purpose. And now I'm getting at a stage now where I'm kind of, want to do things a little more freely in regards of my approach.
Mm. So, when it comes to your legacy, not the organization itself, but
Mm.
your own legacy as a man, What are you aiming to leave behind?
That Johnny Allen Jr. did good work, that I did the good work, that I did it. I did the good work for the purpose of our community, and I did it in the way of working with the youth, the families, and the communities. That's my
Gotcha.
legacy. I want my babies, and they've been able to see. They're still young. They 8 and 6, but I do have a plaque at my old high school, Highland Park. I have a plaque. I'm on the Wall of Fame at Highland Park
Mm.
for my services. You know, and I want them to see that their dad did that work, and he did it organically, and he did it the right way. Being able to have those type of opportunities so my babies can see that their dad did that thing, that's part of the legacy.
So, what do you hope your work teaches the next generation of male leaders?
I want them to understand that it's important to give back. They don't have to do it as hardcore as I've done it or continue to do, but it's very important for our young tigers and lions to understand the importance of giving back and showing face for the next young folks to see and be motivated that they can also do what they're capable of doing when they have people in their circle.
Mm. So, my last question I want to ask you from your perspective, if you were to speak to anybody, doesn't matter the age group, young, old, in between, who's at a point in their life where they need to make an extreme change, all right? Like you had to at a younger age, second act, right? Professionally, relationship wise, whatever it is, right? They just have to have some faith and make a change. What would you say to this person to give them courage to go forward?
If they're going to make that change, they got to ride that baby out. They got to have that ride or die mentality, and that they have to go at it 110%. You can't half step. You can't be half stepping out here. I don't want to cuss, so you can't be half here.
You can, but it's okay.
You can't half ass, and you can't half step. If you're gonna
Okay.
plunge, you plunge with it, knowing that the spirit above got you, and that you're gonna have to go at it 110% and don't have step, and that you need to understand that, or they need to understand that you're gonna have to ride that baby out. If that's your purpose, you ride it till you can't ride it no more. So I try to encourage our young folks and anyone, if you're gonna make that plunge, make sure that you're ready to go at it 110%, that you're ready to ride or die with your purpose, and that you need to have spiritual belief that spirit is going to back you up on your purpose. And you can't half step.
I want to thank you for your time. And you know what? Look, you definitely have mastered the second act, my friend. You definitely have mastered it, and we can definitely learn a lot from you. I'm hoping that eventually, when I come down to Minnesota, I could visit your location. I wanted to do that last time, but I was only there just for a couple days, and I had to get out. So next time, I'm gonna hit you up so I can come and see the great work you're doing, if that's okay.
Of course, you always can come through. Yeah, it's always open arms, yo.
All right. So, you guys, I want to thank you for joining the show today. You just learned a lot about JK Movement, Johnny Allen. We want to thank him for showing up. And if you believe you have a second act, a story, a journey that you think that can inspire someone, just like this brother has inspired me, just go to my website. That's secondactwithdeangelo.com. Fill out the Q card there, and we'll take a look. And you can come on the show and share your story. All right. Have a nice day.
Much love.